He told the bank I was dead. Then texted me, "Love you, Mom." The pension vanished before my morning coffee cooled, and I sat there staring at the steam, realizing my own son had drafted my obituary in legalese. I always thought betrayal would feel loud, a scream, a slap, a slammed door. But this one came with a ballpoint pen, and my son's voice flat, efficient. "Just sign, Mom," he said, pushing the paper toward me. No smile, no warmth, just the pen. Like a weapon, he sat across from me in my own kitchen, same place he used to beg for cookies at age 5. Now, he barely made eye contact, like I was the teller at a bank, and he was tired of waiting in line. The coffee between us had gone cold, so had everything else. "It's just for estate purposes," he said, flipping to a page marked with a blue tab. "Helps keep things clean, streamlined." His voice had that tone, the one he used when explaining how apps worked to me. Like I was a toddler holding a smartphone upside down. I nodded. Not because I believed him, because if I opened my mouth, I wasn't sure what would come out. Fear, anger, that quiet, awful thing mothers feel when they realize their child has rehearsed this moment without them. He tapped the pen again. "Mom, let's not overthink. I've got a meeting soon." His watch gleamed. Designer. I'd never seen it before. My fingers hovered near the edge of the paper. I saw my name in bold, then legal language that ran like blood down the page. Irrevocable transfer of all property and financial assets, including pension fund and real estate holdings. I didn't flinch. Not then, because I've learned something over the years, something every woman my age knows deep in her marrow. You never let them see the first crack. So I smiled, tucked the loose hair behind my ear, and said what women say when they're staring down the barrel of a betrayal they haven't named yet. "Let me just read it carefully tonight, sweetheart." He blinked once, twice. He wasn't expecting resistance. "Not from me. You trust me, right?" He asked it casually, like I was the irrational one. I stared at him, my son, who once broke a lamp and cried in my lap for 2 hours. Now, he was asking for my signature like it was a signature dish, something he'd ordered ahead of time. There was a silence, soft, suffocating, and then, the buzz. My phone screen lit up beside my coffee mug. Bank notification, retirement account accessed, $0 available balance. For a moment, I didn't breathe. I just stared at the screen, not crying, not thinking, just, Still, he was already spending it, before I'd even signed, before I'd even said yes. That pen between us might as well have been a match, and somewhere in my spine, I felt the spark. She prints the papers, but the fine print holds more than legal language. It holds his plan to disappear, not support, not protection, control, like I was the loose tooth he'd finally worked free, like my life was something to be filed and closed. The printer made that soft, coughing sound it always did, like it too was tired of spitting out things I didn't want to see. Page after page, crisp, white lies dressed in legal language. I laid them out on the kitchen table, smoothing each sheet with my palm like I was blessing the mess. Black ink, blue tabs, my name, over and over again, like I was being erased, with my own permission. I didn't call Ryan. I called Mitchell, Mark's old lawyer. He used to play chess with us after dinner when Ryan was little, back when things were simpler, back when pawns mattered. He picked up on the second ring. Carla, his voice still had that courtroom gravel in it, the kind that didn't waste time pretending. I didn't explain much, just told him I needed to see him, today, now. He didn't ask why. He just said, "Don't sign anything, and meet me in person." I hung up and stared at the documents again. Somewhere around page 9, the language shifted. Transfer of ownership, pension conversion, custodial rights of assets. I was losing more than my home. I was losing my voice. My phone buzzed. Again. Ryan, 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 Mom, don't make this a thing. Just trust me. You're being paranoid. He used to text me "Goodnight, Mama" with little heart emojis. Now, I was just the signature that wouldn't cooperate. I opened the banking app. My breath caught before the screen even loaded. There it was, a login from 2 days ago, a withdrawal, not huge, but enough. And underneath it, his name, Ryan Davis, authorized access, verified signature. I had never signed that. I had never even seen that document. I slammed the laptop shut. The sound echoed in the kitchen like something breaking, like trust, like peace. I stood there for a long time, just listening, not to him, to the silence. It had changed. The house didn't hum like it used to. I walked to the drawer where I kept my important things. Birth certificate, passport, a dried corsage from Mark's funeral. I pulled it open, paused, then grabbed the USB stick tucked behind an old receipt from our anniversary dinner. I backed up everything, scanned the documents, screenshotted the bank activity, labeled the folder, not yours. Then I changed my email password. It had been Ryan1989. Of course it had. It was time that changed too. For the first time in days, I exhaled without shaking. Not because I was calm, but because I was choosing to see clearly, even if it hurt. The phone rang again. Not Ryan this time. Mitchell. His voice was low, careful. Carla. There's something you need to see, and fast. I looked at the kitchen table, paper scattered like fallen leaves. The pen still sat there, waiting, but I wasn't holding it anymore. I used to think ghosts haunted attics, but this one lived in my closet in a cracked leather briefcase that hadn't been opened since the day we buried Mark. It smelled like old tobacco and the past, and when I reached for it, I swear it pulled back. Like even the dead were trying to warn me. I had to use both hands to drag it down. The zipper resisted, not jammed, just stubborn, like it knew what was inside wasn't meant to be unearthed. I sat on the edge of the bed and pulled it open. There were papers stiff with age, corners curled like secrets left out in the cold. A photo of Mark in court. Younger, sharper, alive in the way men look when they still believe their family is unbreakable. I shuffled through folders until I saw it. Last will and testament, Mark Joseph Davis. Dated, stamped, familiar, and then, another one. Different font, different language, same name. I read it once, then again. By the third read, I knew. The first will gave me everything. The second, everything to Ryan. Immediately. No stipulations, no life interest, just mine now his. My fingers began to tremble, but not from fear, from fury, because the second will was dated 7 months after Mark died. I grabbed the corner of the page and lifted it to the light. The ink shimmered like oil, too fresh, too perfect. It had been printed on the same kind of paper I just used. I checked the notary signature. No stamp. No witness initials. I pressed my hand over my mouth and sat back against the closet door, heart thudding like it wanted out. He forged it. Not just the signature, the entire story. I remembered something. Mark's old desk drawer. The one that stuck in the middle. I'd left it alone for years. I crawled to it like a woman chasing a whisper, forced it open with the base of my palm. Inside, a folded yellow page, tucked beneath a picture of Ryan in Little League. Mark's handwriting, wavering but clear. If anything happens to me, Carla gets full control. Ryan's not ready, not yet. Protect the house. I sank to the floor. There it was. Proof. Not just legal, moral. This wasn't paperwork. This was a boundary, and Ryan had spit on it. For a while, I didn't move. Just sat there with the briefcase beside me like an open casket. Then I stood, walked to the scanner, and copied both wills, marked one, real, the other, lie. I slid the originals into a manila envelope, wrote Mitchell in bold black letters, and tucked it behind the heater vent. A trick I learned the year our house was robbed. Not everything needed a safe, just a good memory and better reasons. My phone buzzed. Mitchell again. I answered with a voice that no longer shook. He didn't bother with hello. Carla, he said. I just checked county records. A pause. Heavy, hollow. Your house is already listed for sale. I looked at the window. Outside, the for sale sign hadn't gone up yet, but I could feel the ground shifting beneath my feet, as if my home had already left without me. Looked at the emails. He called me a stubborn liability. I gave birth to him. I wiped his nose with my sleeve. And somewhere along the way, I became a line item in his spreadsheet. The iPad wasn't even locked. It sat on the armchair beside the guest room bed, still warm from use, like betrayal had a heartbeat. I wasn't snooping. I was surviving. It auto-synced with his Gmail, because of course, I was the kind of mother who always made sure his devices were backed up to the family cloud just in case he ever lost anything. Turns out, the only thing he lost was his conscience. The subject lines read like a countdown. Final docs in progress. She's almost there. Payout pending. One message stopped me cold. She's just dragging her feet. Old lady still thinks it's her house. I didn't gasp. I didn't cry. I pressed the screen, zoomed in on the text, and read it again like I was reading the label of something expired and poisonous, because that's what it was. Rotten version of me. I forwarded the email chain to Mitchell, attached the will labeled lie, and included one line: "He's not pretending anymore." Then, I sat in silence, the kind that vibrates, the kind that presses against your ribs like it's trying to cave you in from the inside. The house used to smell like cinnamon. Now it smelled like dust and printer toner. And something I hadn't named yet, the scent of being replaced. I called the city office next. The woman on the phone was cheerful, oblivious. "Yep, 1085 Pine is in escrow. Congrats, congrats." Like I'd just sold cookies for the church bake sale. I hung up before I said something that would stain my soul. Escrow, as if he was just waiting for the last piece to fall into place. Me. I didn't throw things. I didn't scream. I stood up and packed a tote bag. Not clothes. Not yet. Just the small things. My wedding ring, my father's watch, the jade box with the loose photo of Mark fishing. I drove them to Jenny's house, my old coworker, the only person who never judged me when I once cried in the teacher's lounge for 22 minutes straight after Mark's stroke. She didn't ask questions. She just opened the door. "I'll be back for them," I said, placing the items gently on her hallway table. "I'm not going anywhere," she replied. And I knew she meant it. That night, I made myself tea. I didn't drink. I watched the lamplight pool across the floor and thought about how shadows stretched longer before they disappear. Ryan hadn't texted, hadn't called, because somewhere, he thought I was folding. The stubborn liability finally snapping like a dry twig. He didn't know I was writing a new ending. My phone rang. Mitchell. His voice was tight, not panic, not yet, but serious, focused. "We need a private investigator," he said. Then, after a pause, "He's laundering the money, Carla, through shell accounts." I looked down at my tea, untouched, cold, quiet, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt sharpened, like the kind of woman who doesn't just hold on to her house, she defends it. The footage showed him at a private bank, laughing, with my name on the folder, with my future in his hands. I didn't know whether to scream or throw up, so I just sat there and watched the sun. I raised Vanish frame by frame. Mitchell had arranged the meeting in a small law office just outside of town. Neutral ground, no courtroom, no confrontation, just the monitor, a cup of burnt coffee, and the pie I hadn't met yet. He wore a wrinkled blazer and a look I couldn't read, but when he pressed play, I didn't need translation. There he was, Ryan, in a tailored suit, smiling like he'd won something. I leaned forward. The audio wasn't clear, but I caught enough. My name, something about asset reallocation, and then, once it clears, I'm done. She's good as gone. He said it like I was a splinter he'd finally pulled out. Like I'd been irritating him for years. Like everything I owned, everything I loved, was just in his way. The pie clicked through more files. 3 companies. All fake, all legally formed and tied to me. One listed me as a silent partner. Another listed me as deceased. The third had my birthday wrong by 1 day. Enough to dodge suspicion. Smart, calculated, cruel. I felt my chest tighten like a drawer caught halfway. It wasn't just that he was stealing. He was scrubbing me out, as if I'd never existed. "Deal closes in 48 hours, Mitchell said, sliding a manila folder toward me. His voice was firm but not unkind. "If he gets the wire through, we lose everything. House, pension, legacy." He paused. "Your name." I blinked, and for a moment I saw myself not as a woman, but as a transfer of assets. My hands curled into fists on my lap. I didn't notice until my nails dug crescents into my palms. I looked down at the red marks. They looked like closing quotation marks, as if someone had finished writing me. I stood. The chair scraped loudly across the tile. Everyone flinched, even me. But I needed that sound to prove I was still here. Mitchell asked if I was okay. I wasn't, but I nodded because now wasn't the time to unravel. Now was the time to play along. I drove home slowly. The streets looked the same, but everything had shifted. The world, my son, the definition of love. I passed a florist. Mark used to stop there every Friday, sunflowers in one hand and chocolate in the other. Now I knew why I'd stopped getting them. Ryan used that card and canceled it after the funeral. I walked into my house like a stranger. Same floors, same framed photo on the wall. but I felt like a ghost, walking through the memory of a life that had been staged without me. That night, I picked up my phone and typed 3 words. Let's talk tomorrow. I sent it to Ryan. No emojis, no warmth, just bait. He replied in seconds. Sounds good. Glad you're coming around. I stared at the message like it was a spider crawling across clean sheets. This was the boy I carried for 9 months. The one who cried when he lost his first tooth, and now he was smiling in bank footage while preparing to sell the bones of my life. The pie called just before midnight. His voice was flat, no spin, just truth. If he wires that money, he said, it's gone forever. I reached into the drawer and pulled out my wedding band, slipped it back on, not because I missed Mark, but because I needed to remember who I was before. Ryan tried to write me out. He thought I couldn't read. I taught 30 children a year how to spot lies in fairy tales. He thought I'd sign my life away for peace. I taught them that peace without honesty is just silence with lipstick on. Ryan didn't forget who I was. He erased it. Mitchell filed the paperwork at 8:42 a.m. Emergency motion. Fraud inquiry. Temporary block on all asset transfers. I signed every page without hesitation, this time with purpose, this time as a woman who knew what her signature was worth. The power of attorney Ryan had quietly used for months. Gone, suspended, flagged. I watched him lose access in real time. One click, one login, one lockout at a time. My name was still mine, and I intended to keep it that way. At 9:17 my phone rang. Ryan. I let it buzz 4 times, then answered with the voice I used to call out spellingtests.com, clipped and completely unreadable. Mom. He sighed. Let's just do this quietly, okay? That was the first sentence. The second. You don't want legal stress at your age. He said it like he was offering me mercy, like I hadn't been losing sleep to keep the lights on in a house he was trying to sell from under me, like I was still small enough to scare. Let's meet, I said. I even softened my tone. Let him think I was folding. Old habits die loud, but manipulation, that dies quietly. I met him at the same coffee shop where we celebrated his college acceptance. He wore cologne, pressed sleeves, eyes too bright, smug. I wore my teacher cardigan, the one with the ink stain on the sleeve, the same sleeve I once used to wipe tears from his cheek the night he came home heartbroken, the same sleeve now hiding a recording device clipped at the seam. He rambled, talked in circles, said things like streamline the process and keep this clean, then leaned forward, lowered his voice. You know what they do to people your age in court, right? I smiled. Not with my mouth, with my silence, the kind that makes predators wonder if they've just stepped on glass. I left before finishing my coffee, walked straight to my car, pulled the door shut and sobbed into the steering wheel, not because I was broken, but because I had too empty the ache somewhere before it hardened into something sharp. By 4:15, Mitchell had the recording. By 5 o'clock, he had already transcribed the threats. By 6:30, we had a witness plan, a timeline, a war strategy dressed in law. I boiled pasta that night and forgot the salt. A petty metaphor, maybe, but that's what betrayal does. It makes you forget the details that once mattered. Just before midnight, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. One line. Stop this. You'll regret it. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over delete. Then I took a screenshot, labeled it evidence, and went to sleep with the ink-stained cardigan still draped across the back of my chair like a soldier's flag, folded but never surrendered, smiled like she'd already moved in, pregnant, young, calling my son her protector. And all I could think was, she's standing in the doorway of the life I built, while I sit in my car, like the cleaning lady who stayed too long after closing. The pie sent me the address in a text, no preamble, just, they're meeting here, parked 2 cars back, stay low. I didn't answer, just grabbed my keys, didn't even change out of the sweater with the peeling necklie. It felt fitting. Let him see the version of me he'd already cast aside. They met outside a little cafe on East Main, the kind with overpriced pastries and mismatched patio chairs that make you feel like you're in someone else's memory. She walked like she belonged in that world, hand on her belly, wearing a soft, peach-colored dress that looked like it had never touched a washing machine. She leaned across the table and laughed, tucked her hair behind her ear like a movie star in a detergent commercial. I recognized that laugh. It was the kind of laugh women use when they think their life is about to begin. Then he said something, and she nodded, and my whole body went still. I cracked the window just enough to hear her say, "She's senile, right? I mean, she's sane. She just needs a little push." My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I'd been called things in my life: strict, soft, too much, too little, but never senile. Not by a stranger. Not while she planned the color scheme of my living room. She smiled again, that soft, sugary smile that women wear when they think they're being protected. I wanted to pity her, but I couldn't find the space. Because what I saw wasn't a woman in love. It was the weapon he'd chosen to replace me. I drove home, with the air off and the windows up. The silence in the car was so thick I could feel it in my teeth, like cotton, like fog, like a scream I swallowed whole. When I got home, I didn't take off my shoes. I walked straight to the hallway mirror, stared at myself, longer than I should have, until the lines in my face blurred into something unfamiliar. Then, I hit record on my phone. "He replaced me," I said, and she smiled while doing it. My voice cracked on replaced. I kept the recording anyway. Labeled it proof I wasn't imagining it. Afterward, I sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out my laptop, searched her name. It didn't take long. Social media posts, baby registry, a caption that read, "Our future home is finally coming together. Grateful for everything Ryan's made possible." I printed them, each one, page by page, slid them into a blue folder, and wrote her name across the top in red ink. Lila, like a warning, like blood on snow. Mitchell called just as the printer spat out the last post. He didn't even say hello. Just, her testimony could sink him, if she talks. I looked down at the photo of her holding her belly in front of my front door. The brass doorknob gleamed in the sunlight, and for the first time, I realized she didn't just want my house. She thought it was already hers. I didn't raise a monster, but I fed him. I buttoned his coats, paid his parking tickets, covered his lies with bedtime stories. He wasn't born cruel, but somewhere along the way, I taught him how to be comfortable with silence, and now, I was done being quiet. Lila showed up late. Pregnancy made her slower, softer, but she still wore that glossy Instagram smile, the one that says, "I know more than you, and I know I'm pretty while knowing it." She met me at the library cafe, neutral ground, public where whispers echoed louder than threats. I didn't dress up, didn't try to look maternal. I came as I was, wrinkled, ready. I laid the manila folder on the table before she sat, didn't say a word. She flipped it open. First page, forged will. Second, Ryan's Shell Company filings. Third, bank screenshot, her name nowhere. The smile broke, just a flicker. But I saw it. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your future," I said, flatly. "If you stay on his side." There was a long, beautiful silence. The kind that separates girls from women. The kind that ends illusions. I thought, ... He said, ... Her voice cracked like glass in a microwave. "I thought we were building a life." I didn't say I understood. I didn't say I'd been there once, too, holding hands with a man who made lies look like lullabies. Instead, I slid my phone across the table and hit record. She called him. Put it on speaker. "Hey babe," she said, voice high and honeyed. "Just wanted to make sure the paperwork's gonna clear before Friday." I watched his voice shift from sweet to slippery. "Yeah, all good." Her signature's just a formality. The ID thing's handled. I pressed stop. She didn't meet my eyes. But she didn't stop me when I emailed the file to Mitchell either. She left the cafe with nothing but her purse and a new silence wrapped around her, like Amma. And I let her go, not with forgiveness, but with something better, distance. That night, I visited the notary, sat under flickering fluorescent lights, and signed the revocation paperwork. It smelled like toner and broken trust. But when I walked out, the night air felt cleaner. On the way home, I stopped at the mailbox, slipped a thick envelope addressed to Harlan and Weiss LLP inside, Ryan's attorney. Inside proof, and a handwritten note. "You represent a thief. I represent a mother. Your move." I boiled water when I got home. Didn't cook anything, just watched the steam curl like ghosts above the stove. Then I uploaded every file to a secure drive labeled, "If he touches me, send this." I was halfway through folding laundry when my phone lit up. "Ryan. Just for words. What the hell did you do?" I stared at the message, then folded Mark's old t-shirt, the one Ryan used to sleep in after nightmares, pressed the seams flat, and whispered, "I finally opened my eyes." His bank card declined. So did my silence. The system finally spoke. The one he thought I was too slow, too old, too soft, too trigger. I didn't scream. I didn't smile. I just sipped my coffee and waited. Mitchell's voice came through the phone like steel wrapped in calm. Accounts frozen, retirement, escrow, the house fund. He can't move a dime. It wasn't justice. It was damage control. But I'd take it. My pension came back, partially what he hadn't laundered. We locked. Enough to breathe. Not enough to forget. The knock came mid-afternoon. 3 short pounds. No doorbell. Just the rhythm of rage. I opened it before he could kick it. Ryan. Face red. Eyes wild. Sweat down his collar like he'd just run from the truth. He stormed in without asking. Like he still believed this was his. "What the hell did you do?" he barked. The same voice he used as a teenager when I took his car keys. But this wasn't a tantrum. This was a man cornered by a woman he underestimated. I didn't flinch. Didn't sit. I pressed play on my phone. The recording filled the living room like gospel. Yeah, all good. Her signatures, just a formality. The ID things, handled. His face drained. He blinked once, twice. "Is this some sort of trap?" he hissed. "No," I said, flat. "This is called memory. And this time, I'm keeping receipts." He paced. Muttered something about betrayal. About being his own mother. As if I'd taken something that belonged to him. As if I was the thief. I pointed to the front door. Didn't yell. Didn't cry. Just stood there. The way walls do when storms pass through. He walked out. But not before turning, jaw clenched, voice shaking. "You'll regret this." The door clicked shut behind him, and I collapsed. Right there in the hallway. Onto the floor I'd scrubbed clean for his first birthday party. Right where he took his first steps. I sobbed into the hardwood. Grief isn't loud. It's slow, sticky. It lingers in your ribs and sits behind your teeth. And when it leaves, it takes your breath with it. I don't know how long I lay there. But eventually, I stood, wiped my face, and opened the drawer where the fake will waited. Mitchell's message blinked on my phone. "Burn the fake will. Officially tonight." I took it to the backyard, laid it on the fire pit like it was a dead thing. Because it was a death of trust. A death of innocence. A death I wouldn't grieve anymore. I struck a match. The kind we used to light birthday candles. The kind I kept tucked in the drawer behind the loose batteries and expired coupons. The paper curled, black edges folding into themselves like shame. And as the flame swallowed his lies, I whispered, "This is the last time I clean up after you." It didn't curl like paper. It curled like control. Like everything he'd tried to build from my skin, my signature, my silence, shriveling at the edges, inch by inch, until the only thing left was smoke that smelled like shame. The fire pit crackled. Mitchell stood beside me. And the notary, bless her, looked like she'd walked into a funeral she wasn't sure she was allowed to cry at. She held the camera steady. The forged will sizzled on camera. I spoke my name clearly. Date. Time. Legal notice. No tears. Just truth. Truth hot enough to burn. That night, Mitchell filed the real will. The one Mark signed, notarized, and left in that old briefcase like a love letter I hadn't opened yet. By morning, a judge had frozen every asset connected to Ryan, accounts, properties, the LLCs, even his stupid podcast income stream. The word fraud finally made it into an official record, and it didn't have my name next to it this time. I didn't go outside for 2 days. Didn't need to, because support came in like wind under a locked door. Letters, emails, even voice messages from women I'd never met. One said, "I signed, I didn't fight. Thank you for showing me it's not too late." Another brought sunflowers, left them on my porch with a note that read, "Some roots don't rot, they grow back angrier." Then the news broke. Leela's baby confirmed. Paternity test attached to a custody filing Mitchell forwarded to me at 1 a.m. I sat in the dark and stared at it like a map I never asked to read, because the baby was his, and that meant she was tethered to him. And maybe, now, to me, I didn't know what to feel. Relief, grief, a tired kind of hope. So I did what women do. I boiled water, wrote lists, and pressed clean pillowcases like the war wasn't bleeding under my skin. The courtroom was cold, too cold. I wore my black coat, the one I hadn't put on since Mark's burial. It still smelled like the lavender sachet he used to sneak into my drawers. I testified about what I lost, what I endured, How a son becomes a stranger, and then a stranger becomes a threat. The judge didn't blink, but the clerk did, and I saw something in her eyes that cracked me open a little. Recognition. They called Ryan's name, but he wasn't there. He'd vanished. Evaporated into whatever corner cowards crawled to when accountability knocks. By sunset. The news had a new headline. U.S. Marshals enter search for financial fugitive Ryan Davis. Fraud, forgery, identity, theft. The list bloomed like mold on a forgotten cake. I was folding laundry when I got the envelope. Plain, no return address. Inside, a legal request. From Ryan's defense. Psychological evaluation. Of me. They wanted to prove I was unfit, unstable, maybe even senile, just like Leela once joked. I stood there in the laundry room, holding the paper like it might bite. Steam curled from the iron. Somewhere in the house, a kettle whistled. I didn't move, not for a full minute, because I realized something deeper than rage, more dangerous than grief. They were going to come for my mind, not my money, not my house, me. I reached for my cardigan, the one with the ink stain on the cuff, slipped it on like armor, and whispered, "Let them test me. I dare them to find out what I remember." The headline read, "Man steals from mother." That man once kissed my forehead before school, tucked a dandelion in my hair, and said, "Your magic, mama." Now strangers debated my sanity beneath a photo of us at Disney. He wore mouse ears. I wore pride. They used my smile as evidence. "Looks like a happy mom to me," someone commented. Another, probably exaggerating for attention. "She seems too polished to be traumatized." I didn't reply, didn't defend, just closed the tab and poured tea into the chipped mug Mark gave me for our 14th anniversary, the one that says, "Still here." The silence in my house used to be sacred. Now it echoed with opinions I hadn't asked for, voices from digital shadows, people who had never folded a onesie, never watched their child lie with a lawyer's smile. Mitchell told me to stay quiet, let the court speak. So I did that. Then came the message from a local shelter. Women's Refuge. They wanted to interview me for a podcast. Use my story to show what financial abuse looks like, what maternal resilience sounds like. I stared at the email for 5 whole minutes. There was a time I would have said yes. There was a time I would have said everything. But something inside me, something tired and soft, just whispered, no. I didn't want to be a headline anymore. I didn't want to become a symbol. I just wanted to be human again, quietly so. Instead, I packed a small bouquet tulips this time, and drove to the cemetery. Mark's headstone was worn at the edges. Just like me, I sat beside it and spoke low, like we used to at bedtime. I didn't fail, you know. He did, but I survived him. A breeze passed. Or maybe that was just relief moving through me. Back at home, I made soup I didn't finish, sorted the mail, organized the pantry like it was a cathedral. Sometimes healing is just lining up cans by expiration date. The next morning, I printed every medical record I had. Blood tests, vaccination records, old dental forms, signed by hand. I placed them in a neat folder labeled, Mental Fitness Review, Carla Davis. Let them come. Let them test. Let them see what resilience looks like on paper. I dusted the bookshelf after that. Ran my fingers across old photo frames. Paused at one. Ryan, age 6, holding a finger-painted card that read, I love you more than Lunchables. He meant it once. I don't question that. But love without memory. That's not love. That's theater. I walked to my closet and pulled out the cardigan again. The one with the ink stain. It still smelled like detergent and defiance. I folded it carefully, placed it next to my ID and folder. Prepared. Ready. My phone buzzed. One line, official and cold. Your mental fitness assessment is scheduled for Monday, 10:30 a.m. I set the phone down beside Mark's mug and whispered to the quiet room, good, let's give them something to remember. They asked who the president was. I told them who betrayed me. They asked what year it was. I answered with the moment my son forged my name and called it progress. This wasn't a memory test. This was an autopsy. The room was small, pale green walls, too much sunlight, too much quiet. The psychologist's name was Dr. Lane, late 40s, expensive glasses, voiced like lavender tea. She didn't speak down to me, but she did speak softly, like she thought I might shatter, as if grief made you glass. She asked for my birthday, my address, how I slept, Then she slipped in, the ones that hurt. Do you ever forget where you are? Has anyone close to you expressed concern about your mental state? I almost laughed, but laughter felt like the wrong kind of power. I'm here, I said, not wandering highways or yelling at stop signs. Just, here, she nodded. Wrote something down in looping script. Then came the question that didn't sound like a question. You seemed calm, for someone who lost everything. I looked at her, dead in the eye, and said, I didn't lose everything. I kept myself. That's the miracle. There was a long pause. Then she asked about Ryan. That's when it cracked. I didn't mean to say as much as I did. I told her about the night he cried in my arms after a girl broke his heart. How he hated losing board games. How he used to line up his toy soldiers by rank and threaten to fire them. How his hunger for control didn't start with me, but I made it comfortable. I didn't raise a criminal, I said, but I might have raised someone who believed love came with loopholes. She tilted her head. Why do you think he did this? I stared at the potted plant by her desk. It was fake. No roots. Just decoration. Because I stopped bending, I whispered. And bending was the only language he spoke fluently. She didn't write that one down. She just folded her hands. Final question, she said gently. Do you think it's wrong to protect yourself from your own child? I didn't blink, didn't pause, didn't explain. No, she stood. Told me I could wait outside while they printed the summary, so I did. In the hallway with humming fluorescents and a cracked vinyl chair. It came in a thin folder, stamped in red. Subject is fully competent and legally sound. That was it. No parade. No fireworks, just clarity on letterhead. I walked out of that building like it was a church that had finally let me leave without confession. On the way home, I stopped at the same diner where Ryan once spilled milkshake down his shirt and cried. The waitress was new, but the jukebox still worked. Didn't order anything, just sat in the booth and let the past pass by like traffic. When I got home, Mark's cardigan was still on the chair. The sun hit it just right, made it glow at the seams. I ran my fingers over the ink stain, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. Then the phone rang. Mitchell. His voice was clipped. He's bringing a surprise witness. He said, be ready. I walked to the mirror, looked at the woman in it, calm grief, steady hands, ready eyes, and said, let them come. I'm not afraid of ghosts anymore. He called him his brother. I called him Mark's mistake. And as he walked into the courtroom, clean-shaven, smooth-tongued and holding a Bible like he didn't mean to drop it, I felt the air shift, like someone had just opened a window in a house that didn't want to breathe. His name was Darin Tall, confident, said he was Mark's firstborn, a product of a college affair, the kind that comes with a whisper and a closed casket. Looked at me like I was an inconvenience, a placeholder in a family he claimed was never mine to keep. She manipulated Mark, he said from the stand. Took advantage of his guilt to write herself in where she didn't belong. It didn't sting. Not anymore. I was too tired for shame, and too well read in betrayal to flinch. The courtroom was silent. You could hear the judge's pen click. Ryan sat smug, as if pulling this ghost out of the family closet gave him some moral resurrection. I opened my purse, pulled out a letter. Faded ink, folded 3 times, addressed in Mark's handwriting, to Carla. If anything happens, I walked to the witness box, held it up. This is my husband's confession, dated, signed, witnessed by his priest. I handed it to the clerk. Her hands shook just a little. Enough. In the letter, Mark wrote, yes, there was someone. Yes, there was a child. I failed them by leaving. I failed Carla by hiding it, but I never changed my will, not out of guilt, out of truth. She is the one I built this house with. She is the one who stayed. Darin wouldn't meet my eyes after that, not even once. Then, Lila stood unprompted, pregnant belly framed by the courtroom, light like some cracked Madonna. She told them everything. How Ryan lied, manipulated, told her I was losing it, said the house was his, the pension his birthright. He made me feel like a queen, she said, but he stole the crown. There were tears, not from her, from someone behind me, a woman I didn't know, a mother. Probably, some pain is contagious. And then, I read from the one thing that still lived in my nightstand drawer. A letter Ryan wrote at 15, back when Mark and I grounded him for skipping school. It was folded like revenge, spelled out in pencil. Sharp and juvenile. One day, I'll take everything. You think this house is yours, but it's just a stage. and I'm waiting for you to forget your lines. The courtroom was frozen. No coughs, no shifting chairs, just silence. The kind that tastes like realization. The judge looked at me for a long time, then at Ryan, then at the documents in front of him. Final ruling. Civil fraud, proven. Criminal charges to proceed. And then, full legal control of the estate granted to Carla Davis. Permission to seize all remaining assets, all properties, all accounts, even the watch Ryan wore into court. I stood, gathered my things, walked past Ryan like he wasn't even there, because some ghosts deserve no haunting, no reckoning, just absence. Outside the courthouse, a breeze lifted my cardigan sleeve, the ink stain still there, faint, but visible, like all the things that tried to ruin me, faded, but not erased. And for the first time, I walked away with everything I needed still mine. Me, he always wanted me to sign the house, the fund, my voice, sign my name into silence. So I did, but not for him. I signed over $100,000 to the Women's Legal Aid Clinic last Tuesday. They didn't know what to say at first. I told them they didn't have to. Some gifts are just quiet corrections. I signed it under my maiden name, because that's the name I built before anyone tried to borrow it. Ryan texted the next day, "Congrats, you win. Hope you're proud." I stared at it for 4 full seconds, then deleted it. Not out of spite, but because some words aren't worth storing. The next morning, I went down to the kitchen, opened the drawer that used to hold fruit snacks and permission slips. Now it held something more final. My new will, 2 pages, simple, straight to the point, like I learned to be. Signed it slowly, each letter like a bell tolling, beneath beneficiaries. It read, "Gives Haven Women's Refuge, gives Lila Wilson, in trust for minor child because I don't need a bloodline to leave a legacy, just intention, and a pen that doesn't shake anymore." After that, I visited Lila. She looked tired, the kind of tired only women know, but stronger too. She held the baby like a truth she couldn't undo, but also didn't fear anymore. I handed her a sealed envelope. She didn't open it, just pressed it to her chest and whispered, "Why are you doing this?" I said nothing, but thought, because I know what it's like to be handed something broken and told to make it home. That night, I mailed a letter to Mitchell. 1 line, no punctuation. Case closed. It felt less like an ending, and more like a door. I was finally allowed to shut. The next morning, I watered the plants, reordered the coffee filters, put the cardigan in the wash. Life didn't feel poetic. It felt real, and sometimes real is enough. Then I saw it, tucked inside my mailbox, beneath a Bed Bath & Beyond flyer and a coupon for gutter cleaning. A small envelope, no return address. Just 5 words in slanted handwriting I hadn't seen since prom. "From your son. Please read." I held it with both hands. It felt heavier than paper should. The wind picked up just slightly, just enough to lift the corner of Mark's photo on the hallway shelf. And I stood there, not ready, but steady. I didn't open it, not because I was afraid of what it said, but because I already knew what it didn't. No apology, no ownership, just one more paragraph of manipulation dressed as sentiment. So I burned it. I lit the letter in the same fire pit where I'd torched the forged will. This time, I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just watched it curl inward like a lie returning to ash. It didn't smell like paper. It smelled like closure. A week later, I left. Sold the house. Not the one I lived in, but the one that tried to live through me. I packed only what mattered. A few books, a box of Mark's letters, my grandmother's ladle, and the cardigan with the ink stain. I moved to a small coastal town where no one knew my last name, the kind of place where the grocery clerk still handwrites receipts, and the only gossip is about crab season. People asked why I moved. I told them I was tired of concrete and noise. That was true. But more than that, I was tired of being seen only when breaking. I got a job at the community center, teaching financial literacy classes to women and seniors. We meet every Tuesday and Thursday in a sunlit room above the library. I bring lemon cookies. They bring stories. One woman cried when I explained how to read a power of attorney. Another whispered, "No one ever told me I could say no." I started writing again, a small guidebook, titled it, "Don't Just Sign." Subtitle, "Your name is not a gift tag. It's not poetic. It's practical, and sometimes, that's the revolution." Leela sends photos. The baby has his mother's eyes. big and alert, like he's already watching the world for signs it might betray him. One picture showed him grinning at a plastic spoon. I stared at it longer than I should have, then whispered to the empty room, maybe I didn't lose a son. Maybe I just stopped mistaking myself for one. There's peace here, not the quiet kind, but the earned kind, peace that comes from knowing. I could have destroyed myself with rage, but chose repair instead. The ocean is loud at night. The waves slam the shore like punctuation marks. And still, I sleep better than I have in years. I keep the ink-stained cardigan in a drawer now, not because I need it, but because it reminds me I survived in that skin. Control isn't power. I know that now. Power is the moment you choose not to reply, not to beg, not to bend, not to open the envelope. It's the decision to stay whole, even when someone swears they're the missing piece. Fade to silence. Then, a single image, steam rising from a cup of tea. Not for comfort, just because it's warm.